I used to think the sound of a life coming together was ordinary. The dryer clicking toward warm stillness, the thud of delivered packages, the way two toothbrushes leaned toward each other in a cup. We were 3 weeks from the wedding. The suit was tailored, the playlist locked, the seating chart argued into submission. I had a best man who'd flown across the country to toast me. A venue with a view so pretty it made people compliment the architecture like it was a person. And a fiancé who knew every florist by first name. The night before our bachelor and bachelorette parties, our apartment looked like a confetti store had exhaled. She and her friends were getting ready in the bedroom. Music too loud for the neighbors, but not loud enough to hide laughter that grew sharper as the champagne went down. I was in the hallway, tying a shoelace that never seems to stay tied on the first try, when one sentence slid under the door and lodged in my chest. I invited my ex, hope he'll come because I spent the whole day shaving everywhere for him, LOL. Her friends howled. The kind of laughter that pretends to be harmless until you hear what it's feeding. Someone whistled. Another said, "You're savage." A third, "You're not worried about your boy?" My fiancée, Ava, giggled like a secret was a charm bracelet. "He's so sweet," she said, voice syrup thick. "He'd never know. Besides, it's just a party." I didn't push the door. I didn't clear my throat. I didn't ask, "What did you say?" Like a man auditioning to be humiliated in his own home. I stood up, smoothed my shirt, and looked at our hallway gallery. Photos of hikes, tiny victories, our apartment on move-in day with pizza boxes stacked like monuments to optimism. In half the pictures, Ava's eyes were on the camera. In the other half, they were on me. I walked to the kitchen and poured water into a glass that had been purchased as part of a his and hers set. I drank it slowly, like I was trying to swallow fire without showing smoke. When I set the glass down, my hands were steady. I've learned that a steady hand isn't the opposite of anger. It's what you use when the job calls for precision. Her phone lit up on the counter, a banner notification gliding across the lock screen. Group. Bach Bash. A string of hearts. A dress emoji. A knife and fork icon. A location pin. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. They were going to Montrose on a party bus painted like a lipstick tube. My guys were doing barbecue and pool at Josh's, then a dive bar where the jukebox has 2 settings, Springsteen and Something Broken but Somehow Perfect. From the bedroom, "He's here," one friend squealed. "The bus." Heels clicked. Lipstick found its case. A perfume cloud rolled down the hall. Ava swept out wearing white that pretended to be innocent. She blew me a kiss. "Don't get too wild," she said, grin sharp. "Can't have you showing up to the altar with barbecue sauce on your vows." I kissed her cheek because muscle memory isn't morality. "Have fun," I said, and meant it in a way she wouldn't like. When the door shut, I stood in the quiet our apartment made when it stopped hosting us and started listening. Then I took out my phone and texted 3 people. To Josh, "Plans changed. Meet me at the shop at 8. Bring the black folder." To my sister Lila, "I know it's late. Need a couch for 2 nights. I'll explain when explaining won't make me set something on fire." To my attorney, Harper, the one who wrote our prenup like a seatbelt we hoped never to use, "Are you awake?" Hypothetically, if a fiancé overhears a fiancé inviting an ex to a bachelorette party and bragging about grooming for him, what levers exist between do nothing and pull the building's fire alarm? Harper called in 30 seconds. She doesn't like hypotheticals unless they're on retainer. I told her exactly what I heard and exactly what I hadn't done. "First," she said, "do not confront. People in party mode don't tell the truth, they tell the version that keeps the music going. Second, you are not married yet. That is not a small fact. If you are reconsidering, we can unwind cleanly. Deposits will sting, but the law is kinder before the champagne toast. Third, if you need to deliver a message tomorrow morning, deliver documents, not speeches." I exhaled. "And the ring?" Harper's breath was a dry laugh. "Rings belong to the story you choose. Which story is yours?" "Not the one she's telling to her group chat." "Then write a new ending," she said. "I'll email templates in 20 minutes. I packed fast. Not a dramatic suitcase to slam. A quiet duffel with a change of clothes, my passport, the watch my grandfather wore to a job he never complained about, and the black folder Josh kept in his safe. A habit from when we built our first 2-man renovation business and learned that receipts always tell the truth. In it, vendor contracts, venue invoices, the prenup copy, and a spreadsheet of deposits I'd made like a man investing in a future he planned to show up for. Josh's shop smelled like sawdust and stubbornness. He was there in a hoodie, hair a mess, face set in that brother look that means tell me and I'm on your side already. I told him enough to understand. Not everything. I didn't have everything yet. He didn't go to anger first. He went to logistics. "We can put the brakes on the venue without burning your name," he said, thumbing through the folder. "Caterer's got a refund clause if event is canceled by client prior to... Here. Band? 50% sunk. Photographer? She likes you. She'll release the date if we get out by Monday." "I'm not trying to bankrupt anyone," I said. "I just don't want to build a house where the foundation is a dare." He nodded. "So what's the play?" "Tomorrow morning," I said. "She wakes up expecting breakfast in bed. She gets breakfast in facts." We laid it out like a blueprint. At 7 a.m., a courier would knock with a slim box and a letter. Inside, the ring, not tossed, not spite-dinged, just resting in the velvet like a truth you can't ignore. The prenup with a tab on the clause about contingencies. A clean, human letter that said I wasn't going to be the man smiling in photos where I didn't belong. A second courier would visit her parents' place with a note that asked them to stop calling me son, like it was a favor I had to chase. The venue and vendors would receive a respectful cancellation email timed for after she read mine. No gossip, no blame, just release. My lease application for a studio 2 blocks from Lila's would be submitted tonight. My name would be off the joint credit card by morning. The keys she thought I would put in her hand at the altar would be replaced by the ones I slid across the table at noon. My apartment keys on her ring last week, her apartment keys off mine today. "Cold," Josh said. "Not judging, measuring." "Clean," I said. At 11, I drove past Montrose. The party bus idled outside a bar where the neon signs never turn fully off. Through the window I saw glow necklaces, novelty sashes, open mouths full of songs they half knew. Ava stood on a banquette, holding her drink like a torch. I didn't look for him. I didn't need to know whether the ex had come. The sentence she had said existed whether he appeared or not. The intent was the thing. My phone buzzed. "Lila. Couchmaid. I bought cereal you pretend you don't like. Whatever this is, bring your dignity. I'll supply the pajamas." Harper's email arrived with documents that sounded like air conditioning. Cool. Technical. I filled in names and dates. I wrote the letter I needed to write, one that didn't weaponize shame or beg her to be someone she had already told me she wasn't. I printed 2 copies. I slept 3 hours on Josh's office couch, my jacket over my eyes, my ring still on my finger, because I wanted to be the one who took it off when the room was honest. At 6, the city was soft and gray. I jogged the 3 blocks to our apartment, a courier envelope tucked under my arm. The smell of rain that never arrives telling me the day would not indulge me with dramatics. I let myself in. The place was a champagne hangover. A confetti arc on the floor, a sash slumped on a chair, a heel abandoned like a bad idea. I brewed coffee because she'd smell it and expect it, and the last kindness I could give was to hold the ceremony steady while I changed the script. I set a tray on the dresser, a mug, water, 2 aspirin, a napkin folded into a square, the small velvet box centered like a period at the end of a sentence. Under it, my letter. Beside it, the envelope with vendor cancellations printed and sealed. On top, I placed a Polaroid from our engagement night, us smiling the way people smile when they think the ground under them is bedrock. Her phone vibrated on the nightstand. A message flashing from a contact saved as Mara. "Girl, we are feral for last night. Did he suspect? Text." I turned the screen over like a pebble. The apartment door clicked open in my head, memory mixed with the present, and I realized I was done collecting proof that hurt. I left the tray where she'd see it the second her eyes focused. I took my watch from the dish by the sink, my passport from the drawer, my jacket from the chair. I looked at the room where we had almost begun a story, and felt grateful that sometimes the ugliest mercy is the one that comes on time. At 6:58 a.m., I stood in the kitchen and listened to the coffee maker finish its little song. At 6:59, I texted the courier. "Front door is open. Leave the flat box on the console. No signature. Thank you." At 7 a.m., she stirred, reached toward the smell like it contained forgiveness, and called out, voice rough and soft, "Babe, is that breakfast?" It was, just not the kind she had in mind. I didn't answer her. I let the kitchen stay quiet, the coffee's last hiss the only reply. A minute later, the bed springs creaked, soft footsteps padded down the hallway, and she appeared in the doorway wearing the sash like a defeated flag. Her eyes found the tray first, then the velvet box, then the envelope with her name. I watched the sequence land on her face in small, honest collapses. "Aiden," she said, voice hoarse. "What is this?" I set my mug down and stood where the light from the window cut me in half. "Breakfast," I said, "and the truth." She opened the letter with the carefulness people reserve for bad news they still hope is good. The first lines were simple, no accusations, no poetry. "I love you enough not to marry you like this. I respect myself enough not to pretend I didn't hear what I heard." Her eyes raced to the end, then back to the beginning, like she could find a trap door out of the words. "You're overreacting," she said, throat tight. "It was a joke. We were drinking. I didn't invite him like that." I lifted a hand, not to silence her, but to steady the room. "You don't owe me a version of last night that keeps the music going," I said. "The sentence was the sentence. I'm not angry. I'm awake." She stared past me at the coffee, at the couch we'd picked together, at the tray like it might explain itself. "We can talk," she said quickly, reaching for the familiar script. "Couples get through worse. Therapy." "We could," I agreed. "But that's a conversation for two people telling each other the truth. Last night, you told your truth to your friends. I just happened to be standing on the other side of the door." Her jaw flexed. "So you're calling it off? Over one comment?" "I'm ending a ceremony I can't enter with a clear head," I said. "There's a difference." She opened the velvet box as if the ring might contradict me. It didn't. It just lay there, small and bright and perfectly still. Her hand trembled. "What am I supposed to tell everyone?" "The truth," I said. "It travels faster when it isn't dragging a lie." She swallowed. "My mother will be... You know how she gets." "There's a second letter on its way to your parents," I said, nodding toward the console where a flat courier box now rested. "Respectful. No blame, no gossip. The vendors will be notified at 9. We'll eat the sunk costs. The rest is refundable. You won't be stranded with bills." Her eyes narrowed. "You planned this?" "After I heard you, yes," I said. "I planned it to be clean." She pressed a palm to her forehead, mascara smudging under her thumb. "Aiden, I'm sorry. Last night got stupid. Please don't make it permanent." I thought about that hallway, about the way laughter changes shape depending on who it's for. I thought about vows as architecture, not decoration. "I'm not punishing you," I said. "I'm preventing us from building a house on a crack and then acting surprised when the doors won't close." The buzzer sounded. Short, professional. She flinched. I buzzed the courier up. A minute later, a box slid onto the console with soft finality. She stared at the label like it might bite. I didn't make her open it in front of me. Small mercies still count. Her phone lit on the dresser, a torrent from the Bach-Bash thread. "Girl, last night was unhinged. Did the ex show? Did Aiden suspect?" She turned the screen face down, as if that could reverse time. "You can stay here to make your calls," I said. "I'll be out by noon. I've already moved my things that are mine. The rest you can set aside, and I'll have Josh swing by this week." I placed the key to her place on the counter, her key off my ring in my pocket. She blinked up at me, a kind of panic rising that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with losing the script she thought we were following. "What am I supposed to do?" "Be honest," I said. "With yourself first." I left before she could assemble a counter-argument built out of fear and habit. In the hallway, the carpet muffled my steps, the elevator sighed like a referee. On the street, the city felt freshly washed, the kind of morning that forgives no one and everyone equally. I went straight to Lila's. She opened the door with a blanket already draped over one arm and a look that said she'd punch the planet on my behalf if I asked. I didn't ask. I sat on her couch, stared at the ceiling fan, and let the quiet scrim between exhaustion and relief settle in. She say anything worth keeping? Lila asked. She said overreacting and therapy, I answered. I said architecture. Lila snorted. You and your metaphors, you okay? I'm grieving a story that almost belonged to me, I said, and I'm grateful I didn't try to steal it anyway. At 9, the vendor emails went out. Short, respectful, signed by me. Replies pinged in. Understood, will release the date. Refund processing. Sorry it didn't work out, wishing you both peace. The band kept the deposit. The florist thanked me for the heads up and promised not to charge for greens already ordered. The photographer wrote a single line that read, "Integrity looks good on you." I didn't know how to answer, so I didn't. At 10, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, a text arrived, not from her, but from Mara, the loudest friend, unsaved number, but the tone gave her away. I was there last night. I said nothing. That's on me. I'm sorry you heard what you heard. You're a good man. I typed and deleted twice, then left it be. Not every apology requires my labor to receive it. By noon, my inbox was a tidy field of confirmations. Harper called to check my pulse. You did it clean, she said. Most people turn the morning into a bonfire. I like my revenge like my lumber, I said, straight-grained. She laughed softly. I'll send you a memo with how to unwind the joint things still left. Gym membership, the registry you don't need anymore, the health insurance change. Also, do not read comments if this leaks. Silence is a strong suit. It's on, I said. Even with myself. I took a walk. To the river. The air tasted metallic like rain reconsidering. I leaned on the railing and watched the current do what it does. Carry, sort, refuse to explain itself. My phone buzzed again. This time, her mother. I let it go. Then, her father. I picked up. Aiden, he said, voice careful. We just got a letter. I know, I said. Long exhale. We love our daughter. We love you too. We're disappointed in the choices, he cleared his throat, in the giggling. Me too, I said. You're a good man, he said, the words heavy. We'll return the deposit for the rehearsal dinner. It seems small. It's what we can do. Thank you, I said, and meant it. Back at Lila's, Josh had left a bag by the door, an extra set of clothes, the black folder, and a note that read, "Proud of you for not trying to fix a thing that told you it didn't want to be fixed." He'd drawn a little saw on the corner. It made me smile for the first time that day. In the late afternoon, Ava texted. The preview alone told me the shape of it. I messed up. Please meet me. Just to talk, please. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred, then typed, "Not today. Be kind to yourself. Be honest with yourself. That's the only talk that matters now." 3 dots appeared, blinked, disappeared. Nothing else came. Evening slid in quietly. Lila put on a pot of pasta. Josh came by with garlic bread, and we ate like people who know that feeding the body keeps the spirit from making rash decisions. They didn't ask me to explain beyond what I'd already said. We played cards. Josh cheated badly. Lila caught him always. We laughed and didn't clap our hands over our mouths like we were hiding something from ourselves. Later, alone on the balcony, I took off the ring. I didn't throw it. I didn't clutch it. I set it on the table and watched the city lights flare and fade. The word fiancé loosened its grip on my throat. Man felt like enough. My phone vibrated once more, an email from the venue manager, formal and kind. Date released, refund issued. If you ever need the space for something else, something that fits, let us know. I pictured the empty hall, the view that so many people had complimented, and saw it new. Not a loss, but a room returned to itself. Before bed, I wrote a short message to my guest list, BCC'd, as polite as a farewell can be. The wedding is canceled. Thank you for your love and your RSVPs and your airplane miles. Please do not inquire for details. There are 2 people involved and no villains needed. If you booked travel, send me the invoice. I'll help where I can. Be well. I hit send and turned the phone face down again. Sleep found me quickly, like it had been waiting for me to choose it. When I woke, the world hadn't ended. It had simply changed shape to fit the truth. There would be echoes. There always are. But the room was honest now. The house I hadn't built wouldn't have to be torn down later. And the man I still was could look in the mirror without having to argue with his reflection. The weeks that followed felt strange in their calmness. After the cancellations, after the quiet messages and the refunds, the world didn't collapse. It just kept moving without me. I wasn't the man preparing to say I do anymore. I was the man learning how to live after saying I don't. I spent the first few mornings doing what felt mechanical, jogging, making coffee, checking my phone less. My body followed routines it had learned in another life, but now they belonged only to me. No second cup, no lipstick on the rim, no half-played playlist in the kitchen. Just the rhythm of my own breathing and the creak of the floorboards beneath my feet. One morning a letter arrived, no return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Ava. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded twice. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. You didn't deserve what you heard or what I made you feel. You were supposed to be my forever, and I ruined it before it began. Please believe me when I say it was stupid talk, not intent. But I understand why you left. I'd have left me too. I read it once, then again, and placed it in a drawer. Not out of anger, but because I'd already said my goodbye. There was no more version of this story where I became the man who went back. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt, even when you can still see the other side. Josh kept me busy with work. We took on more renovation projects than ever before. Kitchens, decks, houses that had fallen into quiet neglect. There was something healing about repairing broken things that weren't mine. Watching wood align, floors level, walls take color again, it reminded me that ruin isn't permanent. You just have to start sanding somewhere. About a month later, her best friend Mara sent me a message. Not gossip, just acknowledgement. She's moving out of the city. Says she can't stand seeing your photos on mutual friends' feeds. Don't worry, no one's blaming you. Most of us get it now. I didn't respond. But I hoped Ava would find peace somewhere new, far away from the echoes of what she'd laughed about and what I'd overheard. We were two people who'd almost been happy. Almost don't make foundations. They make lessons. By late summer, I'd signed a new lease, a small loft above my workshop. It smelled like cedar and ambition, and it had one window that framed the skyline perfectly at dusk. Lila came by to help me unpack. She looked around the place and smiled. "Feels like you again," she said. "Yeah," I admitted. "It does." She set a small potted plant on the counter. "Don't kill this one. Consider it symbolic." I laughed. "Of what?" "Starting over without burning out." That night, I cooked dinner for myself for the first time in months. Just pasta and garlic bread, nothing fancy. But when I sat down at the table, it felt like a victory. The fork clinked against the plate, the radio hummed a slow song, and I realized I wasn't lonely. I was simply alone, and that wasn't the same thing. As autumn rolled in, I ran into our old photographer at a local market. She smiled, then hesitated. "I never said this, but what you did took guts," she said. "Most people would have ignored it, gone through with the wedding just to save face." I shrugged. I just didn't want to start a lifetime pretending not to hear the truth. She nodded thoughtfully. "You know, sometimes walking away is the most loving thing you can do, for both people." Maybe she was right. Weeks later, I got an invitation from a couple whose house I'd renovated. They wanted me to come to their reopening party, a celebration of their new old home. It was small, warm, filled with laughter that didn't sound rehearsed. I stood near the back, drink in hand, and for the first time since that night, I felt comfortable being part of someone else's happiness. That's where I met Leah, one of their friends, a teacher with paint on her hands from a school art project. We talked about everything except relationships. She had an easy laugh, nothing forced about it. When she asked what I did, I said, "I fix things." She smiled. "That's a good job. World needs more of that." I didn't ask for her number that night. I wasn't in a rush. But a few days later, the homeowner texted me. "Leah asked for your contact info. I hope you don't mind." I didn't. Our first coffee was simple, our first walk quiet. She never asked about Ava, and I never volunteered. She was kind, grounded, and she talked about her students the way people talk about things they love more than they admit. It wasn't love at first sight, it was peace at first conversation. By winter, we were seeing each other regularly. Nothing serious, nothing fragile either, just honest. And that honesty, I realized, was the most attractive thing I'd ever known. Sometimes at night, I'd think about how close I'd come to tying my life to someone who laughed about loyalty like it was outdated. But instead of bitterness, I felt gratitude. I'd been handed my truth before I built my cage. Not everyone gets that lucky. Ava once believed her joke wouldn't cost her anything. She was wrong. And I learned something too. Dignity doesn't always roar. It sometimes just quietly leaves the room and never looks back. The night before New Year's, I stood on my balcony, the city buzzing below, Leah beside me, her hand slipping into mine. Fireworks cracked in the distance, flashes of color lighting up glass towers. "Any resolutions?" she asked. "Just one," I said. "To never ignore what I hear again, even if it hurts." She smiled. "Fair enough." And for the first time since that night before the parties, I didn't feel like the man who'd been betrayed. I felt like the man who had learned to start again, with quiet, with grace, and with the kind of peace that doesn't need applause.